talks, conscious relationships, and dating. Actually, we're going to edit that. Hello, and welcome to Conscious Dating and Relationships with Dr. Tranquility. Um, we have an amazing guest for you tonight. Her name is Ananta Ripa Ajmara, and she is an author. She is the author of The Way of the Goddess. She's the founder of The Ancient Way. She has her own podcast, so she's a podcasting sister on True to Yourself podcast. And you'll find out she does Ayurveda for The Well, at The Well on Instagram. And she is Ananta.1, ANTA.1 on Instagram. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, what was the impetus for your writing The Way of the Goddess?
The impetus for this book was really my own personal journey to be able to connect with wholeness within and to really heal from childhood trauma and a lot of eating disorders and really lack of connection with my own true self that led me to seek deeper knowledge and
Mhm.
ultimately to come home to my own self with the goddess tradition of India. I am from India. My parents immigrated from there before I was born. So I also really felt compelled to understand more about my roots and how
Mm.
that connection could help me navigate day-to-day life and situations and relationships.
And how has the connection to your roots helped you to navigate relationships?
It has really helped me to understand who I am beyond this body and beyond the mind. Most of the times, we believe that we are just this limited body and the limited mind, and that when something happens to us, it is really affecting us. Whereas the ancient Vedic or Indian spirituality says that the body and the mind are just outer layers of us that we have taken on karmically, but who we are is actually a soul that is not affected by all that comes and goes, that's not affected by what happens to the physical body, what happens to the mind and emotions, and is actually a witness of all of this, and is something that we can find refuge in once we have the knowledge of that true identity and that true self.
Wonderful. Wow. Amazing. So, tell us how you got started in the podcasting world, babe.
I got interested in podcasting because I just felt like I had so much to share. And it felt like Instagram was kind of a limited portal to be able to share in terms of the time restrictions and the space restrictions to be able to post and share from the heart. So it just became a way to really have more of a platform for transmission of the knowledge that I just feel so blessed to have gained through about 12 years of deep study with different lineage-based teachers, master teachers from India.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, and where can we find your podcast? Where can we find your True to Yourself podcast? Excuse me.
The True to Yourself podcast is on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever else people like to get their podcasts.
Okay. Well, we are going to take a break and we will be right back with Ananta. Again. Sorry, Ananta.
That's okay.
I will reintroduce you when you come back in,
Okay.
and you will let me know how you're doing. It's still streaming, but we're off for the radio show for a break. We're gonna put in some
Oh, okay.
pay our bills.
Okay.
You ready? Okay. 3, 2. Hi, and we are back on conscious dating and relationships with Ananta. And we are so excited. We're talking all about her podcast, True to Yourself, and The Way of the Goddess, her new book, which is going to be a bestseller because all of my listeners on AM, FM, and Podcasting Universe are going to go get a copy, aren't you? And it's a wonderful book for women. Um, and actually, one of our sponsors at the show, Gaia Goddess, is I'm trying to connect you guys so much because I just see something powerful there. Um, but you are so powerful in your own right. And what really is a one question, because I'm sure women come to you from around the world and asking you, what can I do in my dating life? How can I do it differently? What would be something that you would suggest to them?
It's amazing because in chapter 8 of The Way of the Goddess, I actually shared about my newfound approach to dating and relationships, which is
Hmm.
actually supporting women to embody the essence of Vedic Lord Krishna, who is the author of the Bhagavad Gita, a spiritual teacher, a warrior, and also a lover of life and mischief. So
Mm,
I felt that growing up and, as I got into my 20s, I was a lot like the goddess Radha, who is the lover of Lord Krishna, who never becomes his wife, but is like that eternal um, romantic flame of Lord Krishna because she is the true devotee of God.
mhm,
So even though he is married to so many women per mythology, he always has a special place in his heart for the goddess Radha because she is so pure and her devotion is so pure and she has that kind of heart full of love of the true higher divine kind.
wow.
So I think a lot of us women become like Radha and we become really devoted to men and to our, or the partner in general, whatever gender they may be. But when we identify as the female identification, I feel we tend to go into that devoted mode before we maybe really check out whether a person is really worthy of such devotion. And I am certainly one who is guilty of that when I didn't know better. It was a beautiful thing to have that devoted feeling in the heart, even though this boyfriend of mine, who I also wrote about in chapter 2, had not really reciprocated at all and who actually
Oh,
hurt me, but I was able to find that pure love within my heart for him to
yes,
not engage in the relationship in a direct sense, but really like kept that divine love, like how Radha loves Krishna, even though they're not together. And
right.
then I decided, after a lot of going really deep within, because it was my decision to break up from the relationship, to go deeper actually into my spiritual path, because being with him briefly, very briefly, just showed me all the unresolved issues that I had around trauma and abuse, and especially sexual trauma, which I really needed to heal within myself in order to be able to then engage in relationships in a healthier way that was going to be true to myself. So I took a long time to really go deep within, to study, to give myself a kind of self-imposed monastic lifestyle to be able to absorb, assimilate, digest, and integrate the deep Vedic spiritual knowledge into my life. And after having gone through that for many years, I was like, what would dating be like now that I know who I am, now that I have gone deep into all of these layers and really resolved a lot of relationship issues, relationship karma, and my own, relationship with myself. And what came to me was now it's time to be like Lord Krishna. It's time to actually re engage and be just as playful, just as fun loving, just as fierce of a warrior, but not so serious at the same time,
Right,
and
right,
also not give my heart fully to one person, but actually allow for the possibility of many people to interact with, to play with, to have fun with, while honoring certain boundaries, right? So I'm not going to get
Yes.
physically involved with anyone until they really prove that they're worthy, and then only engage further at that level. And that's really what Krishna also is what they call it eternal brahmachari, or an eternal celibate. And at the same time, he's surrounded by women. So it's a really interesting idea that,
Dichotomy.
yeah, like that when we know our true self, when we really go deep into that journey, first of all, you can still have relationships, but when you know yourself, then you can only know someone else's true self. And only then
Mhm.
are you also going to have that discernment to see who is capable of loving you in return and
Right.
actually being like Radha in your life, right? Because if we've been the devoted one, if we've been loyal, if we've been steadfast in our love, then we know how to do that, and we can do that, and we have mastered that power of love and devotion. But we maybe have not exercised our discernment so well in terms of who can love us in that same pure, devoted, beautiful, spiritual way. And I just feel
Mm.
that now it's really fun to have that approach, because when we know who we are, we know that we're already complete within. We don't really need someone else to fulfill us, because we're coming from fulfillment. And so if we're not needing anything, then it opens up a field to just really truly have fun without craving something that is outside of us, because pleasure lives within us, joy lives within us, love lives within us. And when we can embody that which we're seeking in the other, then it just becomes what they call a divine leela, or a play, a fun, where we get to interact with multiple people and feel out what it's like to talk to them, what we felt like when we talked to the other person, and see where do we feel the most at home? Where do we feel like we're the most in our true authentic self,
Mm.
and that we can actually blossom even more into that, and that a partner is actually going to add to that blossoming rather than restricting us or controlling us in some way, or getting upset with us, or overly kind of getting possessive, or any of those kind of attachments which ruin
Right.
love. So in the spiritual
Yes.
way of understanding, we feel that there's a big difference between true love and attachment. And
Yes.
when we have love, we have attachment minus any desire from the other
Mm.
person to fulfill us, to give us something that we don't have, and to complete us in some way. And when we can really start to approach relationships without that self interested desire, clinging attachment, we can reduce the suffering that we have in relationships. And then it just becomes a field of fun and enjoyment, and a place to exercise good discernment and really honor our own boundaries, and to move slowly with people, because our body is a temple. And when we see it that way, we are going to take better care of it. And when we learn to love and care for ourselves truly, then only are we going to even be able to recognize someone who returns that same love that we
So
give
true.
to us. So I just
Yes.
think, it's all a balance, right? If we're like
Right.
always feminine, then maybe we
Well,
need to embody a little healthy masculinity, and see many people, like how, this male seed is always trying to go out to multiple people. And so it's just an approach. We don't have to get physically involved in that way, but just in the energetic sense, we can engage with multiple people in order to see what is really the best kind of partner for us to feel
yes.
safe enough to unfold in the ways that we wish to. And similarly, I tell my male students that it's really important to connect with the feminine within them, because we all have these divine energies. And even though physically male identifying people are not able to rebirth, or give birth to children, they can connect with that divine feminine principle, which is about rebirth, and which is about transformation, and which is about true love and nurturance and care for oneself. And then similarly, if they've been caught up in relationship dynamics which have not been so healthy, then by offering themselves that love, they'll be able to also bring in a partner who's going to vibrate at a more spiritual level.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Ananta, Ajmera, I thank you so much for being with us tonight. You are the Way of the Goddess. And make sure you pick up her book, The Way of the Goddess, and you can find that on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Audible. Is it on
Yeah,
Audible yet?
I believe
Audible.
yes, because I've recorded the audiobook, so it's my
Okay,
own
great.
musician.
Yeah, and Audible. And really just pick up a copy. Follow her on Instagram. Why don't you give everyone your handles, sweetie?
Oh, sure. So on Instagram, I am at ananta.one. So ANANT as in tiger, A, and then the number one, all spelled out, ONE.
Beautiful. And make sure you keep your ears open for her podcast, True to Yourself. I think it's fantastic that you're doing that, and I'm excited to listen to more episodes.
Thank
So
you so much.
thank you so much. Thank you for being with us, love. I
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for having me. Truly appreciate it.
Take care and be well.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.